Well, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Just want to welcome you to Conflict Management Training Phase 1. And I appreciate everyone coming out. And I want to thank you. And today we're going to do, the Phase 1 part of it is learning about your conflict mode. And I think you're going to have fun with this. So, you might ask, who is Charmian Hines, your trainer? Charmian Hines was actually born in California, but I was raised in Detroit, Michigan, since I was a baby. But I've lived the past 11 years here in Phoenix, and I've done pretty good. I have a Bachelor of Science degree in Public Administration, a focus on planning and organizational diversity. And I'm currently working on my master's degree with Abilene Christian University in org development. And I will also get a mediation credential. I'm currently employed as a senior HR analyst with the City of Phoenix. And I have a rich and diverse background in workforce development, talent and acquisition, career development and assessment, and training and workforce development. And I just want to welcome you and thank you for taking the time out today. But I really want you to enjoy this, and I want you to look at this as self-discovery. So the goal for this training is for you to understand your conflict mode. And a lot of us are kind of like, what is conflict? We're going to talk about that, a little bit later, because I think there's a lot of negative connotations about conflict, but it can also be a positive thing. And so today you're just going to identify your conflict mode and kind of talk about how that could impact your interactions with others. So you might say, ooh, look how they're like looking at each other all crazy.
Arguing.
Right. And you might say, well, what is conflict? Does anybody here have an idea? Do you want to give me like your idea of what you think conflict is?
To me, conflict is when you disagree and it can turn into an argument sometimes, and both parties don't agree on a specific thing, idea, or a situation, and they both get upset.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. A disagreement between two individuals that result in a potential argument, fight, combat of sorts.
Okay. All right. And you have anything to add?
Yeah, there is. I'm gonna say sometimes conflict can be miscommunication.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's very, very good. Yeah.
It even can be like if I'm frustrated, but nobody else knows I'm frustrated, and then I say something out, that I shouldn't say, and that causes conflict.
Right. It could be some kind of like just a misunderstanding, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I'm going to define. This is what the Merriam-Webster dictionary defines conflict as. One definition is a fight, a battle. It can be competitive or two opposing actions of incompatibles, an antagonistic state, divergent ideas. It says a mental struggle resulting from incompatible or opposing needs, drives, wishes, or external or internal demands. Another definition is the opposition of persons or forces that gives rise to dramatic action in drama or fiction. That is a lot right there. And then I wanted to add, there's so many different types of conflict, because every day look at what we're seeing on TV. We have global conflict. We have national conflict. Look at our politics. We have religious conflict, racial, just all kinds of conflict. So this one just kind of pointed out that, it could be a man versus man thing, man versus nature. We have a lot of weather issues that are conflictive. We got fires on the west coast. And then we got the floods in between.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
We got earthquakes, you know, man versus himself, so we can have that internal conflict. Man versus society, but the man versus man, it could be individual, but I would say society versus society. I could add to this list as well.
Mhm.
So I thought that was an interesting little diagram. All right, so is conflict good or bad? So is it like a good evil thing necessarily? What do you guys think?
I think it could be both.
Yeah.
I think it could be both. I mean, you know, I think it stirs up good conversations,
Yes.
ideas.
We're gonna talk
You
about
know,
that too.
so I
Yeah.
think it could be both.
Decisions are made,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
you know.
You know, like you said, decisions are made, policies are tweaked. I think conflict is healthy. I think there are times when conflict is needed, and if we could find a way to approach conflict in a more sensible way earlier
Yes.
in that point of frustration, then it doesn't have to end up being, you know, fist fights or argument. Conflict can be handled through conversation.
Everybody high five does, man. That was an excellent assessment, because I think that's the problem, is that people always think it's so negative, but again, it can actually result in some very good things. We're gonna kind of look at that. I have a quote here. For good ideas and true innovation, you know how we always talk about innovation. That's another buzzword that's out. Well, you need human interaction. You even need conflict sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Some argument or debate about specific subjects, you know? Another little quote I have is, the harder the conflict, the more glorious the triumph. So like, if you kind of get through all the crap, that's a good way to put it, the crap or the stumbling blocks or the hurdles within conflict,
Right.
you can kind of get to the good things that may come out of it. This is a little small, but I actually found this article online that I thought was so interesting. It was on the Small Business Admin website, and they talked about how conflict is actually good in business or in life, and it can actually build relationships. So like you said, like, you know, we might have a little disagreement, but if you have a better understanding of me after the fact, conflict opens the mind up. It beats stagnation, you know, because sometimes things could be poking along, and then maybe some conflict might erupt, and it actually might get things moving a lot faster, depending on what it is. I mean, we've all witnessed that before. It encourages new thinking, so that's where that innovation comes from that we talked about in my quote. And it also raises questions, because I think a lot of times we're always thinking about, you know, just thinking about like we're at work and we're just getting these directives, but questions are what brings about dialogue and can bring about like new platforms, new resolutions, new ideas. So, you know, just to get you thinking a little bit differently about conflict. So today we're gonna discover what your conflict mode is. So, does anybody have any idea? No, okay. Like, you have no idea what conflict modes might be.
When you don't have all the tools to, how would you say that, like, you don't have everything in front of you that you need, and you get aggravated, and then conflict comes into play. You know?
I kind of think I know what you're, like, how you're thinking about this, because you're just like, what do I do? How do I handle conflict when it arises, or how can I kind of manage it,
Or when you're frustrated, conflict might arise.
right?
You know, because you might say something because you're frustrated, upset.
Like, it might not have anything to do with directly,
Any
but
other
it's just
person,
you're
but
frustrated within a situation.
Yeah.
Okay.
you're already frustrated, then you go to the next level of trying to fix it, and then something gets in your way, and
Yeah.
then you're like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Okay, well, we're going to talk about an assessment that is world renowned. It's been around for like 40 years. It's called the Thomas Kilmann assessment, okay? And it's an instrument, that's what the I is for. So basically, this is an instrument that individuals can gauge the conflict mode that they're in. So it can kind of tell you where you're at today. And what's interesting about it, there's 5 modes that they have done, like the research on for this particular instrument that they've identified. And it's one of the best. I mean, many companies have used it. It's a global tool. And I actually had to take it in my first class. And what's interesting is it can actually, the mode can change.
Mhm.
You're not necessarily stuck. That's not necessarily going to define who you are. It's going to kind of tell you when you're in that mode how you might react.
Because the situations are different, so depending on
Yes.
the situation, the environment you're in, then definitely your conflict mode will change.
So I want to give you a tool that can kind of empower you today. Because by identifying your conflict mode, and you might have a primary one,
Mhm.
but again, as Connie was saying, depending on the situation, you could actually use different modes. And it's not a bad thing or a good thing, it's just where you're at the time. And we'll talk more about that. But it assesses your individual typical behavior in conflict situations. And it describes along 2 dimensions. And I'm going to show you the graph on the next page. But it starts with assertiveness and cooperativeness. It provides detailed information about how the individual can effectively use 5 different conflict handling modes or styles. So, we have, everybody heard of like competition, right?
Mhm.
So you have your competing mode, and then when you're in that mode, hi, welcome. When you're in that mode, the goal is to win at any cost. It doesn't mean everybody's gonna win. It just means that when you're in that mode, you're gonna win. They probably gonna lose, okay? Then you have your next mode, which is collaborating, and we talked a lot about that. Collaborating. The goal is to find a win-win solution. So when you're in that mode, it's not just a win for yourself.
Mhm.
It's a win for the others involved. And then you have the medium, and it's so interesting because I think, like, I know when I think about growth, we used to hear this word, oh, we gotta compromise. Well, compromise actually is kind of like in the middle. And the goal is to find that middle ground, but finding the middle ground is not always the best answer.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Because you might be stagnant. We talked about that a few minutes ago. You might just be at a standstill
Mhm.
if you're compromising all the time. And then we have avoiding. The goal is to delay or, you just don't want to deal with something. And that can be appropriate at times, depending, but not all the time. And then you have accommodating. That is more, and some people think, well, is accommodating the same as compromising? This is more like you're yielding to something. And so you might not win, the other person might win in that aspect. Avoiding could kind of delay the inevitable, depending on the situation, but sometimes you have to run from things sometimes.
Sometimes I look at it as you have to learn to pick your battles.
Yes.
Sometimes is
Yes.
it worth even
Yes.
saying anything if the
Yes.
outcome's going to be the same?
Yes.
So. Mhm.
And so on the scale here, if you're at the competing, I actually want to add, to me, that's really more, they say it's assertive here, but I've seen some that said that's more aggressive.
Mhm.
And then at the bottom you have your unassertive. If you and once you score yourself, you'll see what that means. But and then you have the bottom here where it's, so if you're avoiding, like you have a high score, that means you're not cooperative.
Oh.
And that means you're unassertive. You see what so it's gonna be interesting. But if you're competing, that means you might, and it depends, like I said, that can be good sometimes, but if you're always there, that's like you're always aggressive and you're winning, but other people might not be winning. And then at the bottom, you're accommodating, and you see how this is attempting to satisfy others' concerns. So if you're always accommodating, you might not be, you're cooperative, but you might not be winning for yourself. So that's the interesting thing about this. So what we're gonna do now is actually find out your conflict mode, and then we're gonna kind of go in, we'll talk more about the actual definitions when we finish.
Okay.
So you have, you want, okay, let me see if we have an extra.
Oh, we have
Well,
extras? You wanna make copies of this?
Yeah.
This right here? Your packet?
Mhm.
Okay.